Hi, I'm Jason Sterling, and this is an RM Cascadian Gamer Dad video. Please hit like, subscribe, and notify, and as always, thanks for watching. Hi, I'm Jason Sterling, and this is the RM Cascadian Growing Together series. This is episode 3. So far, Growing Together, of course, is all about growing, right? You can't have growth without change. And there's been a lot of change in both Reg and Max's life. Max has changed a lot as an infant, and also in Patrick's life, and also in the Spice District of San Myshuno, which is itself growing into a newly settled, from one viewpoint, from Reg's viewpoint, newly settled area, gentrified sort of area. In this episode, that change continues with a few sort of wrenches thrown into it. There is some consideration. What does it really mean when you say you're a new pioneer or a new immigrant to an area? And what do the changes that you've wrought to that area really mean to the people who originally lived there and still live there when you first arrive, right? Because like a lot of areas, these new pioneers, these new immigrants, arrived someplace where people already were, right? And this is true of the San Myshuno Spice District. And what's also true is once an area gets more popular, right? Once it starts to generate some buzz and you start to say, hey, it looks like people like this place again, you're going to see not just pioneers come in, but profiteers come in. And that's where we stand today. We are at the World Imports Building, which is a historic building in the Spice District that has fallen on hard times a long time ago and reached a point of complete liquidation, right? They're behind on their taxes. They've been foreclosed on by the bank, on the original owners. A ton of money is owed on this building, and it's going to go up for auction like so many historic buildings at 10 cents on the dollar, right? If they're lucky. Now, Reg and the newly formed neighborhood association are concerned because a lot of the projects being put forth for this site by the people who are going to bid on it at auction are not necessarily what they would want to see. And so Reg is having a sort of rally. Let's have a neighborhood rally. There's not a lot they can do about it. They certainly can't afford to buy this building. The building is not designated as a historic structure. And they don't have really any real political power. But maybe if they can bring enough negative publicity to these various proposals, it would generate enough public backlash that some of these people might consider at least reframing the proposal and maybe dropping it all together and just dropping out of the bidding process. And so Reg is giving a speech. It's probably one of many days given recently. This district has generated a lot of attention in the media. Their new park has generated a lot of attention. Their new neighborhood association. All of this has happened very fast, and it's caught people kind of by surprise in San Myshuno that all of a sudden the sleepy Spice District is kind of waking up. And so Reg is here saying, hey, we don't like these new proposals. We don't need a convention center here, which is one of the things that seems like they propose a lot when it's time to bulldoze an area of lower income to regenerate it, to bring back interest to the area. It's like, yeah, I know, let's knock down all the poor people's houses and we'll put in a convention center when there's already probably 12 convention centers, in the city or something like that. So a convention center. And the other big thing that gets suggested, not as much nowadays, but say 10 years ago, this story actually takes place circa 2004, 2005, is a shopping mall. I know that the thing that this lower income neighborhood was missing was a shopping mall, right? That's what was holding it back. So stuff like that. Reg does not like those ideas. And he especially doesn't like the idea being floated by Axiom. The Axiom Corporation and Daniel Axiom, Max's grandfather, right? The Axiom Corporation wants to come in, buy that building, bulldoze it, build a tower hotel on it, connect it by an over-the-street bridge to the plaza, right? The plaza there in the Spice District, which they hope to take over through eminent domain from the city. Hopefully the city will turn it over to them and change it from a plaza, to a casino, right? We're going to have a big casino hotel resort. That will bring people to this area. That will revitalize this waterfront district. And again, if you look through a lot of these proposals over time here in the United States, you'll see a lot of that, right? You will see a lot of that. And then you'll see a lot of empty casinos and hotels. That's what Reg does not want to see. It's what he says. He doesn't want to see Axiom come in there and throw up some ridiculous hotel casino, which is not needed in the area, chewing up what little open space they still have left. And in the end, probably will just result in Axiom carrying away a huge amount of money and leaving a lot of broken promises behind, which again, Axiom's kind of based on Donald Trump, right? So that's something that he's been known to do, especially nowadays I don't even know what he builds anymore. I think he mostly just farms out his name, right? So you can just slap his name on a building, at least before he was president. I don't know how many people would want to live in the Trump building nowadays. I wouldn't, but okay, that's me. But so, he's like, hey, he really is against this Axiom plan, and he's against the idea of the Spice District turning into a bargain basement. Okay, where, nobody wanted this building at full price. No one wanted to come in and just pay off the tax lien on it and settle the mortgage with the bank. The bank would probably already cut you a deal on the mortgage because they'd end up getting more than they would at auction. But nobody wanted it for that, but they are more than willing to buy it at 10 cents on the dollar and basically end up doing nothing with it but generating a bunch of cash for their own corporation and leaving that big empty building, a few years down the road for that district to deal with all over again. Even though that is Reg's, a position on this subject, there are other positions, and one of them comes forward, and this is Alec Constantino. He is vice president of the Axiom Resorts and Hotel Division, and upon hearing that Reg was going to hold this rally, well, he came on out here. He's very impressed with what Reg has had to say, but he wants to offer a competing point of view. Now, he, of course, calls him out. He calls Reg out, somewhat rightly so, for comparing himself to immigrants and pioneers of the past with, these middle-class people coming in from the suburbs and resettling the core. He calls them out for this idea that they're going to come in here and they're going to help these poor people in the Spice District, and they throw down a park and they throw down some grass and they say, there you go. Now the poor have everything. And Constantino takes some objection to that, and rightly so. I'll say this real quick. Over my life, I've had a little bit of study in architecture and city planning. And one of the things I most remember was during researching urban renewal and housing projects, low-income housing projects, typically of the 60s and 70s. And they're often sort of failures, catastrophic failures, and kind of, what happened there. Why did that happen? Why did these attempts to come in and you take a blighted area and you knock everything down, you put up a beautiful, well, not beautiful. That's the first problem. You put up an apartment tower with a big lawn around it and you say, there you go, there's a brand new place to live. Aren't you happy now? Part of the problem, of course, is that you knock down the neighborhood, and there was a neighborhood there, and there was a community there, and a lot of times that community was scattered, and then you're trying to bring them back, and all you've given them is actually a place to live with nothing else around it except for a plot of grass. And one quote I remember from a particular book or article or something from that time, and it's always stuck with me, is someone that had lived there before and after urban renewal, says, hey, it was people asking why it failed. Are these people from the suburbs, these middle-class people who came in after this tower is built and there's a big lawn around it, and they wave to the grass and say, there you go, now the poor have everything. And there's something to that idea. When people come in from the suburbs, middle-class people like myself, not me, I don't really think this way, but I've had some education in the subject. But when people come in from the suburbs and they look around a blighted area and they say, gee, what this area really needs is a park. We have a park in my neighborhood and it's just lovely. And the children play there and there's a big tree and there's shade in the summertime. And, that's definitely a suburban middle class thing to say, right? Well, if only this neighborhood had a park, I think it would be so much better. So Constantino calls them out on that a little bit. And he says, what we're looking to bring is jobs. Right? Yeah, that's what the Axiom Corporation is trying to do here. They're going to bring in jobs, which people do need because this district, the Spice District, has an unemployment rate 4 times the regional average. And there are people looking for jobs. And it's Labor Day. What a better day to take on the subject of jobs and labor, but Labor Day. And, that's what they're trying to do. They're going to build something that's going to benefit everybody. It's going to benefit everybody because it's going to bring these jobs in. And help put people to work. More important than a place to play, right? A trivial sort of place to play. Constantino, of course, being the vice president of the Axiom Hotel and Resorts Division, says, yes, of course it is. Points out that the people who are protesting here are really just worried about losing their view of the water or their view of the bridge. May be somewhat true. That may be somewhat true. And that they're not really going to lose anything. Now they are. They're going to lose that plaza, right? They're going to lose some of the little bit of open space left in the Spice District. So they are going to lose. But they're, Constantino's like, you're not really even going to lose anything. You're still even going to have your park when it's done, right? Just have to go under that bridge on the street around the casino, and there's your park. It's good to go. And Constantino throws in that, hey, his family were immigrants. Let's drive that home, right? He takes exception to their point of view, to Reg's point of view, because his family were true immigrants. They came into San Myshuno. He is the first generation born in Samarica, right? Born in Myshuno. And the reason why he and his family have done as well as they have is entirely due to people like Daniel Axiom and the opportunities that Axiom has extended. Thing I really didn't put into the story too much, but this is kind of Constantino's background. That is true. He is an immigrant, but actually his family came to the United States, originally his mom and dad, to get an education in the U.S. And they were both doctors. And then they, eventually they kind of just stayed in the U.S. and settled here and became citizens. And then he was the firstborn there. So they weren't exactly the typical view of immigrants either, although God loved them because we need more professional people here in the United States that want to be doctors and engineers and scientists. And I think if you get one of those degrees or almost any degree, you should get to stay in the United States because the other thing we need is more smart people in the U.S. So, but that's kind of his background there. So, don't read too much into his story of the immigrant, plight of the immigrant. And then he throws in maybe part of Reg's problem is the fact that it's Axiom doing this and not someone else because, as we know, Axiom is Max's grandfather. Axiom's daughter, Julie, is Max's mother. And Julie dropped Max off with Reg and walked away, right? And kind of dropped him on it out of the blue for Reg to raise all by himself. And maybe Reg harbors just a little bit of resentment against Axiom. And is that what this is all about? And Reg, of course, cuts him off and says, no, of course not. Because Reg is willing to debate all day long the benefits of a whole bunch of low-paying service jobs, bringing people out of poverty with below poverty wages, which actually does not happen. Keep that in mind. When someone comes in promising a bunch of jobs and they're all going to be low paying and they're actually below the poverty level, you're not going to raise anybody out of poverty with those sort of jobs. And that's what Axiom is basically promising. He's willing to debate that, Reg is. And he's willing to debate things like the short-term impact of construction on an area as far as motivating and, jump-starting the economy of a region, which also often doesn't really work. It is pretty short-term. If you come in and build a big, skyscraper or tower, you're going to have a short-term boost in the local economy, but it's not really going to hang around. So Reg is willing to debate that, but not his son. His son is not a burden, would never be a burden. And as Reg points out, it should tell everybody a lot that he's not willing to allow his son to see Axiom. That should give you a good idea of what Axiom's like, right? That should tell you right there. Axiom's just not a great guy, and Reg really doesn't want his kid around. Now, despite that, Reg is taking some of those words to heart. I mean, he is kind of considering what Constantino had to say, and he thinks Constantino is a little bit right. Reg is starting to feel like maybe he's been a little bit full of himself, right? He's been on TV a lot. His quotes are getting shared around. His ideas about this neighborhood are getting shared around. And maybe they're not really having the impact that they're kind of putting out through the media. Maybe it is just a park. They did rehab this park. It looks really nice. But did they really affect any real change in the area? Now, sure, they might attract some more middle-class people in to live there, and that might eventually attract some more business in to support those households. But is it really going to help the everyday person that was already living there? And Reg does have those doubts brought on by Constantino, saying, hey, let's look around. Let's be real. Let's be real what we've got here. Now, Patrick is quick to point out, hey, we weren't trying to change the world. We didn't move here to change the Spice District. We didn't move here to generate our own little sort of urban renewal project. We just came to change this park. And read too much into Axiom. Axiom's not going to change anything either. And he's not. And chances are he's actually going to make things worse. In the end, you're going to end up with a giant empty hotel and a giant empty casino that has ruined the district. And probably, 10 years down the line, someone's going to pay a huge amount of money to demolish the casino and put the plaza back, right? And not only is Axiom not going to change anything, but the park they built is free, and it is free to everybody in that neighborhood, including the people who already live there. Nobody has to pay to use it, even though it is technically a private park of the association. You don't really have to belong to the association. Anybody can use it. And the casino is basically going to be geared just towards tourists and or people who either have enough money to not care if they gamble it away, or end up going there. The people of the local district end up going there and spending what little they do have on a hope, on a dream, which happens a lot with gambling, happens a lot with the lottery, and is actually going to make things worse. Reg, though, is thinking. He is having these thoughts. He feels like he should be doing more. He feels like they should be doing more. And he has an idea because Constantino specifically mentioned Max, right? Constantino specifically brought up this family relationship. And maybe that was on purpose. Maybe that is Axiom sending Reg a message, right? So Reg thinks, maybe if I talk to Axiom and I offer him shared custody of Max, he would drop this idea. Now, it doesn't solve everything else in that district, but it does solve the idea of taking over the plaza through like an eminent domain type of deal with the city and building a casino there. All the other proposals just involve that one building, not the actual plaza. Right? And Reg has also been feeling a little bit guilty. Should he cut off all of Julie's family because he doesn't like Axiom? And he's starting to think, no, maybe he shouldn't. Julie's got a brother, Zed, a little bit younger than Julie. And Reg is thinking, Max should know that side of the family. Now, Patrick says flatly no. No. Patrick, this is a little bit where Patrick's probably... the age difference between them is coming into play. Patrick's a little bit older, and he knows. Sometimes you make these decisions in the moment, and it seems like a good idea, and 5 years down the road, you're thinking, oh my God, why did I make that decision, right? Right off the bat, he's seen as a bad idea. You're not going to give Axiom shared custody. And even if you let Max see the family, you don't give Axiom shared custody. That is the road to ruin. He also can't see how Axiom would drop this millions of dollar project, hundreds of millions of dollar project, just over a kid, right? Just because he wants to see his grandson. But as Reg points out, Axiom really doesn't care about money at this point. Axiom has all the money in the world. He has more money than God. He doesn't even bother counting it anymore. What Axiom counts is victories. Axiom just likes to be victorious. He just likes to win. So if Reg presents him with a proposal where he wins a victory over Reg, which so far he hasn't, right? So far Reg has kind of, come out on top, especially in the issue of Max. Maybe Axiom will go for it. Patrick, of course, is still no. Absolutely not. No, don't do it. Patrick doesn't see this as settled either. I mean, yes, Axiom has a proposal. Yes, Axiom's going to want to bid on this spot, but the eminent domain deal is not set. Axiom is behind it, and amazingly, the representative for the Spice District is behind it, turning the plaza into a casino. But that doesn't mean that everybody in San Myshuno is behind it, or that the other people from the other districts, on this council that kind of governs San Myshuno would ever agree to it. This is city property that they're talking about. And so, the other people in the other districts might say no. And then where would Axiom be? Does he really want to just build a hotel without a casino to support it? And the scene kind of ends with this idea that the representative for that district is behind the proposal, and both Reg and Patrick have tried to contact him about it, and of course have never gotten a call back. And the guy's never in his office either, right? I mean, this is almost, he's not obviously, look at the Spice District, he's not really a very good representative. He's almost probably the only person that would take the job. And that figure's coming up. That figure's coming up in part 2 of this particular episode, episode 3. The episodes are getting kind of big, so I've decided to break them into 2 chunks, right? So coming up in part 2, the representative for the Spice District figures in heavily, as does Reg. And his future in San Myshuno. Please join me then. In fact, it's up on my channel right now. I put both parts, part 1 and 2, up at the same time so that you can jump from one to the other. Or if you don't have time right now, you can come back to part 2 later. I look forward to seeing you with part 2.